Throughout his nearly 4 years in office, President Trump has fulfilled a number of pledges on the campaign trail. One of those is moving the U.S. Embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. But it's gone far beyond that, with Israel making numerous peace agreements with other nations brokered by the Trump administration. Here to discuss this further is a coalition member for Jewish Voices for Trump and chairman of HaShevet USA, Bryan Leib. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Stephanie.
So it was just days ago President Trump announced a peace agreement between Israel and Morocco. Talk about the significance of this latest move.
It can't be it can't be talked about enough. I mean, these are just remarkable things that continue to happen between Israelis and Arabs in the Middle East. And Stephanie, it's worth noting that, relationships like this between Israel and the UAE and Morocco and Sudan and Bahrain, these are relationships that have been in the making for a long time now, but they've always been held in secrecy and in the darkness. And what President Trump has done and what his administration has done is they've provided the runway for these relationships to take off out of the darkness and into the light for the whole world to see. And you're seeing what's happening. I mean, I think just 2 days ago, there were over 6,000 people that were flying back and forth between Israel and the UAE. 6,000 people in one day flying back and forth between these countries. So it's nothing short of remarkable, and everyone involved should be applauded for making peace without any bloodshed, Stephanie, without any bloodshed.
I think that's an extremely important point that you make, especially hearing those statistics that you just cited. I mean, it's, as you said, pretty remarkable to hear that. And this weekend, Israel announced it's normalizing ties with Bhutan. What other countries could we expect to see next that could potentially normalize ties with Israel?
Yes, sure. And just to speak about Bhutan for a second, Bhutan is much different than a lot of the other Arab countries. They're not an Arab country. They neighbor India, and it's just another remarkable thing that's happening. But I'm looking at maybe Indonesia, Oman, and a couple other countries, and also the elephant in the room, Stephanie, is Saudi Arabia. They really hope that Saudi Arabia would come to the table here in the Trump administration. But again, this is just so remarkable to see the hard work of years and years and years of Israeli diplomats and Arab diplomats and American diplomats. And it's because of President Trump, and it's because of his administration creating this runway for these relationships to take off. And it's amazing to see.
And it's interesting because Israel and Saudi Arabia, they both have a very common view, which is about Iran. They both do not like Iran. Of course, Iran poses an extreme threat to Israel, and that would also be a remarkable step if Saudi Arabia chooses to go in that direction to recognize Israel. I want to ask you, switching gears a little bit, the U.S. Embassy in Sudan announced it is officially removed from the U.S. state-sponsored terrorism list 27 years after being put there. This in exchange for normalizing ties with Israel. But some pundits are describing the Trump administration's role as a quid pro quo. What's your reaction?
Well, I mean, certainly from the outside looking in, it could potentially look like a quid pro quo. But let's be honest here. This is the way deals are done, and there's no one better at making deals than President Trump. So if some little minute things have to happen for there to be peace without any wars and without any bloodshed, I'm all for it.
Want to see more videos like this? Visit OANN.com for immediate access to all the clips you've been waiting to see.